Hello students, today we are going to study forms in HTML. We've already studied forms in our 11th standard. This is a little bit more advancement to what we have studied in our 11th standard. A form is used to collect input from the user. In HTML, form element defines the form. We write form tag and at the end we write /form. That is, we close the form that we are using. In between the form tag, we use different form elements. So some of the form elements that we use are input element, text area element, and select element. Input element defines the input control. The text area element, it is used for multi-line input control. Whenever we need the text should be entered in multiple lines, at that time text area element is used. The third one is select. Select is used to define a drop-down list. Let's see each of them individually. The first one is text area element. Text area element, it is going to create a text box with multiple lines. So whenever we are asked to enter some feedback, some comments, addresses, in all these cases, text area tag is used. Text area has a closing also. It is a paired tag. Next, the attributes of text area are name, rows, calls, max length, placeholder, and required. Now, name attribute, it is going to assign any name. It can be any text which you can give and assign a name to your text area tag. Rows and columns, they are used to define the size of the text box. Then max length will indicate how many maximum characters are allowed in the text box. Then placeholder. Placeholder is kind of a shorthand. It is going to display the text in that particular text area. Required. Required is going to indicate that the text area is mandatory. You cannot leave it blank. It has to be filled. So here is one example. Text area, name is equals to address, rows is 5, columns is 30, placeholder is equals to enter text area. So this text entered address is going to be displayed in the box. Next we have required. Required is going to indicate that this particular field is mandatory. You cannot leave it blank. You must enter some text in that. And finally, there is a closing for text area. Next, select element. Select element is used to create a drop-down list. And each of the list item is indicated by the option tag. The attributes of select tag are name, multiple, and size. Name is going to give a name to your select tag. Then multiple is going to allow us to select more than one options in the list. Size is going to define how many options, how many list items should be displayed initially. When the page loads, how many options are to be displayed. The option tag is used inside the select tag. It is used for defining the options. So if you are using 3 options, you have to use the option tag 3 times. The attributes of option tag are selected and value. Selected is going to indicate which option is going to be selected by default. Then next attribute value. Value is going to indicate what value is going to be sent to the server. Okay, here is one example. First, select name equal to city, option selected Pune, and close option. Whatever option you want, whichever option you want that should be included in the list has to be in the between option and closing option, like this. So here next one, option Mumbai and close option, option Nasik and close option. Finally, when all the entire list is done, you can close it with /select. Okay, so this is the select tag that we can use inside the form tag. We've already used this in our 11th standard. Coming to input element. Input element also we have used in our 11th standard. So the input element is used in several ways depending on the type attribute. So whatever the type you are writing, it is going to indicate what in type of input that particular text box is going to take. For example, if we write input type equal to text, then it is going to be a single line text box. It is going to take text. So if I want to enter some name, in that case, I can write input type equal to text. Then input type is equals to password. This is used for defining a password field. If I want to define some characters as password, some hidden characters, in that case I can use password. We have used all these options. In our 11th standard, we have created various forms. So it's just a recall for you all. Then input type is submit, defines a button for submitting form data to the form handler. It will show you a button where submit is written, and when you will click on that button, the values that you filled in the form, they will be submitted to the server. Input type is equal to reset. It is going to define a reset button, and it is going to reset all the values. It will clear all the values and set it back to default. Input type is equals to button. It is just going to define a button. It is used basically for JavaScript purposes, wherein we can use some events also. Then input type is radio. It is going to define a radio button. A radio button, you can use only one option. If you have 3 radio buttons, then you can use only one. You can select only one option in the radio button. For radio buttons, you have to use name attribute. Name attribute must be same for all the options. Then the next one is input type is checkbox. It is going to indicate checkboxes. You can use checkboxes if you have multiple selection. For example, if you want to select hobbies, in that cases you can give checkboxes and you can allow multiple selection of checkboxes. Okay, so this is all we have done. In our 11th standard, we have done various programs. You are expected to revise these. Now coming to the next part. These are the new input type elements. We have not covered these in 11th standard, and this is the addition in your 12th standard. First one, input type is equals to color. When you write input type is equals to color, it is going to show you a color picker where you can select the color. Next, input type is number. It is going to show you a text box. In that text box, you can enter numbers. Input type is date. Similarly, when input type with date is written, you can pick a date with year, month and day. Then next we have input type date, time, local. In this case, you can select date, time together. That is year, month, date and time also. So this is the difference between date and time. Month. When you are selecting month, in that case you can select month and year both. Week, it allows you to select the week and the year. Next one, input type is equals to time. So time is going to allow you to enter time. Time is going to be in your time format, that is hours, minutes and seconds. Okay, next, input type is equals to file. When you write input type is equals to file, it is going to allow you to select some files from your system. Whatever file you want to select, you can browse through your system and select it. Then next one is input type is image. Input type is image allows us to put image for submit buttons. Whenever we have some submit and we want to put some image for submit button, at that time we can write input type is equals to submit. Next, input type is email. Input type is email. As the name says, you can put email addresses in this box. Input type is search. It is going to define a text box which is going to be used for searching. Like you have a search bar on many of the websites, it is similar to that. Input type is URL. It is going to define a text box where you can enter some URL. Then input type is telephone. It is going to be used for entering a phone number. Then the last one which we have is input type is range. It is going to show you where you can select the range. It is going to show you a slider where you can select the range. The default range is 0 to 100. You can change the range also. That also is permitted in HTML. So before going to input restrictions, let's just see an example with all these. I'll open these parallelly in your notepad as well as in Chrome so that we can compare each of them. So here we have doc type HTML, HTML head, title is form. You can see the title form over here. Head closes, body section start, H1 personal information displayed here. Next, what we have is input type is equals to text. Required autofocus placeholder is equals to name. Now here you can see placeholder is name. Since we have used placeholder, this name is displayed over here. Now autofocus. You can see by default this box is selected initially. So this means autofocus. Autofocus means automatically it is getting the focus of your uh, cursor. So when you start, this particular text box is going to be highlighted. Required means this text box must be filled. You cannot leave it blank. So just let's, for example, not write anything and click on submit. When you click on submit, it says please fill out this field. It is not allowing me to submit unless and until I write something. So I'm writing ABC. Age. Here, this is a text box as input type is number. So here, see, you can see the numbers. They are, I'm pressing upward arrow and backward arrow to show you the numbers, and you can enter any numbers. Let's enter 23. Okay, next one. Input type is equals to date. So this is my date. Input type is date here. These arrows allow me to go up and down. You can select, you can type it using your keypad, or you can see a small calendar also you can select from there. So this is input type is date. If you want to enter time also, input type is date, time, local. Just make the change over here and you will be able to enter the time also. Enter month. Enter month. So this is input type is month and this is disabled. You can see this is in gray color and it is not accepting any kind of input because this is disabled by default. So if we want some of our options to be disabled, then we can use disable attribute of input. Then next one, enter telephone. Input type is TEL, telephone. Then we have pattern. Pattern is another attribute which is used for defining what input do you want in the textbook, what type of input do you want in the text box. So here in square brackets you have to write what values do you want. Over here I want values 0 to 9. So whatever values you want, you can write the values in the square bracket. Then in curly brackets you have to write number of the values. I want 10 numbers to be filled in, that is why I have written 10. If I write 5 over here, then this text box will permit only 5 numbers to be written. So just for example, over here I am purposely writing some characters. I am writing some characters and I am clicking on submit. Please match the requested format, that is this pattern is not matching. Again, I'll write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have not written 10 and I click on submit. Again, it says please match the pattern. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 0. Once you complete all 10 digits, only then it is going to allow you to submit. Okay. We'll fill the form and then click on submit. Input type is email. Now input type is email. It is going to take a web address. I'm purposely just writing ABC and clicking on submit. See, please include an @ and in an email address. So I am writing @. After writing @, I'm clicking on submit. Again, it does not allow me to submit. I have to write the domain name also, that is Gmail or Hotmail. It will accept Gmail. Okay, address. Now address over here, text area. For address, since we need a multi-line text box, we have not used input type is text. We have used text area. Another important thing that you must remember is input tag is a stand-alone tag. It does not have any kind of closing. And text area is a paired tag. So it has an opening as well as a closing tag. Text area is used for multiple lines. So here we have placeholder is address. So we have address written inside the box. Required, that means it cannot be kept blank. Let's see. If I click on submit, it says please fill out the field. You cannot leave it blank. For address, I am just writing over here degree, but we can type complete multi-line address. Then next one, select city. Your select city, it is going to show you a drop down list. By default, you can see Pune is selected. Option selected Pune. So the first option, that is Pune, is selected. You can select any other option. If you need to select multiple options, then over here after city you will write multiple and it will allow you to select multiple options also. Then first option, second option, third option, and then finally we close the select tag. Then next one, coming over here, choose color. This is the color picker. Click over here, you will see the colors. Select the color and click on OK. So if we want any time to select certain colors, then we can use input type is color. Then over here, input type is file. Multiple. Now this multiple indicates that we can select more than one file. Click on choose file. When you click on choose file, it is going to show you an dialog box for selecting the files. Over here, any type of files are submitted. Here, let's select this file and control and one more file and click on open. Two files selected. If you do not write multiple, then it will allow you to select only one file. So you have to write multiple if you want to select more than one file. Then URL. Let's take for example www.gmail.com and click on submit. It does not allow URLs with www. Whenever we are writing URL, you have to write http:// and then only the URL is complete. Input type is URL. Next, enter range. Here, this is the slider. Over here, this is my 0. This is my 100. Now, how can we change the range? If we want to change the range, we have minimum equal to, let's take 20 and maximum equal to 30. So now here also we'll make the change 20 and 30. I'm saving it, but I'm not executing it right now. First, let's submit this form and then press F5. So when you define minimum and maximum, at that time you can define the range of this selector. Minimum is going to indicate the minimum value that is permitted. Maximum is going to indicate the maximum value that is permitted. The same is true for input type is number also. If you want some range to be defined here, you can use minimum and maximum. Then the next one we have input type is search. Search over here is basically showing a search box, and you can write any search. Right now it is not going to perform anything because there is no coding done. This is just the designing part, and in the design it is showing perfectly. Next one, input type is image, src, button, submit button, png. So this is the source of the button. I have used only the name and the extension as this particular file, and the image are in same folder. Otherwise we have to write the complete path of that particular image you can write, and then you can write over. Input type is image is used whenever you need a submit button. And then finally a form closes. Form closes, your body section closes, and HTML closes. And when my entire form is filled, we can click on submit. So my form is submitted. We have not used any kind of JavaScript or any other programming here, so we will not see anything else. This is submitted to the server. So these are the different input tags that we have. Apart from what we have studied last time, these are the new input tags that we have. Okay, so now coming over here back to our presentation. Oh, just a minute. We'll just minimize these. This is your input restrictions. We have already covered these restrictions in the program. Just again, let's go through them. Disable specifies the input field is disabled. In our case, where we had used input type is month, that particular field was disabled. Disabled means you cannot enter any kind of data in that particular field. Max, it is going to define the maximum value for the input field. Minimum, it is going to define the minimum value for the input field. Pattern, it is going to indicate what type of values are required in the text boxes. It is basically going to check the expression that you want. This expression can be alphabetical, can be numeric also. In our case, we have done it for telephone number. Then read only. If you use input type is read only, it will allow you to just read the data and not enter any data. Then we have next one is placeholder. Placeholder is going to just tell you some kind of hint, some kind of short description that what is expected in the text box. Next one, required. Required is going to indicate that this field is mandatory field. You cannot keep it blank. Then we have autocomplete. If you use autocomplete equal to on, then automatically your fields will be completed. So first, let's take for example that I have entered a name as ABC and I click on submit. And next time again, if I press F5, then that ABC will be displayed in the list. Next one is autofocus. Autofocus is going to define which of the text box is going to get the focus in the beginning when the page loads. In our case, it was input type is equals to text. Next, height and width. Height and width are used when you are going to change the size of your image in case of the input type is equals to image, where we have used the submit image in that case. Then multiple allows you to select more than one fields, more than one files when you have used input type equal to file multiple. At that time you were allowed to select more than one files. Okay. So this is about your form.